Bobo Show, a healthy scratch podcast. Here's your hosts, Kyle Busch and Brian Rager.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 9, Buschy and Bobo podcast on healthyscratch.ca. As you can tell, I am partnerless today. We've healthy scratched Brian. Actually, not so much. He just, we were trying to get a show done like before playoffs, and it just didn't work where we both had the time. So I said, hey, Bobo, I will do a solo one if you'd like, and we'll just get it done and we'll fire a bunch out there. We have a list a mile long of stuff we can talk about. So not like we're going to run out of material. Like playoffs just started. So there's a ton of stuff we can talk about. I have a list of stuff I want to talk about. So starting with, and I know this was probably a week or two ago now, but this whole Tom Wilson, New York Rangers thing has just been absolutely bananas. I'm looking at this, it is completely blown out of proportion. You can tell a lot of the media hasn't been around the game. I'm not saying been around the game. Of course, they've been around the game, but been in the game and seen any of this stuff happen or have been a part of it. Basically what happened, Tom Wilson definitely has, it's a characteristic of this guy to get involved in everything, every scuffle, any type of controversy. Tom Wilson's going to be there. What happened in this game between the Rangers and the Capitals, there was a scuffle by the net, and what happened is Tom Wilson looked like he basically pile-drived Artemi Panarin into the ice. And Panarin left. He was injured, out for the season. Now, the Rangers didn't make the playoffs, so it didn't really have any implications there, but it's their best player. So, obviously, the Rangers were not too happy. And also, Pavel Buchnevich on the Rangers came in as well, and he got his face pounded in by Wilson, like basically same thing. So there was no suspension. Okay, so Tom Wilson got fined $5,000, and we'll get to why. I'm not sure what that's about. But there's also a statement from the New York Rangers. So I'm just going to try and put everything out there first, and then kind of dissect all this because there's a lot. So the Rangers, the next day after Wilson didn't get suspended, put out a statement. I'm going to read it word for word. So the New York Rangers are extremely disappointed that the Capitals forward, Tom Wilson, was not suspended for his horrifying act of violence last night at Madison Square Garden. Wilson is a repeat offender with a long history of these type of acts, like I said. And we find it shocking that the NHL and their Department of Player Safety failed to take the appropriate action and suspend him indefinitely. Wilson's dangerous and reckless actions caused an injury to Artemi Panarin that will prevent him from playing again this season. We'll get to that. We view this as a dereliction of duty by NHL head of player safety George Parros and believe he is unfit to continue in his current role. So, lots to dissect here. First, let's start with Wilson $5,000 fine. If I'm the NHL, like if I'm George Parros, either suspend him or do nothing. Like this $5,000 fine makes it actually look worse, in my opinion. Like you're kind of looking at it and going, like maybe $5,000. Okay, $5,000 to these guys is like us getting fined $5. Like take it. You know what? Here's $10 for next time. Honestly, like if I'm Tom Wilson, like here's $50. Like I'll cut you a check. Like this is gonna happen again. I'm an aggressive player. It's an aggressive league, and there's injury, right? So looking at the actual incident itself, I honestly don't think there was really anything wrong there. You have to look at it, and this is probably what George Parros is looking at. Okay, George Parros, for anybody that doesn't know, was a tough guy in the NHL. He was an enforcer. He played for the Ducks for a while, actually won a cup with them. The guy went to Harvard. It was at Harvard or Princeton, or he went somewhere, some Ivy League school. He's a smart guy. He's got the best mustache ever, sick flow. Okay. So he's the head of player safety. So he's the one that does all these suspensions and fines and everything. If it's George Parros looking at this, he's looking at this situationally. He's not looking at just, Panarin got injured. Oh no, right? Was there intent by Tom Wilson to injure Artemi Panarin and injure Buchnevich? Now, with Buchnevich, yeah, there was a tussle, right? With Panarin, I think it was kind of this weird freak thing where you have to look at it where Panarin came in. He's the one that came into the pile. So as a player going into a pile like that, you have to know that you are assuming all risk. Anything can happen. And if you don't want anything to happen, then stay the fuck out of the pile. That's all I'm saying. You're Artemi Panarin. You have nothing to gain here. You have everything to lose. You're a very talented player. He's basically running that show with New York. And to go in there is actually, honestly, stupid on his part. When you see 43 Wilson on the back, don't jump on him from behind, because you're going to get pile drived with your face into the ice, which is what happened, and he got hurt. And obviously no one wants anybody to get hurt. It's part of the game, where if you're going to go and basically, if you mess with the bull, you get the horns. Tom Wilson's the bull. Panarin got the horns. That's as simple as it is. And Buchnevich coming in, he's just trying to protect the teammate. So I respect that, but you're going to get your face punched in too. So, and I've been a part of that. I'm not a tough guy. I never fought anybody. I've never fought anybody in my life. But playing hockey, I've been in a situation like that. And I'm sure Josh Letourneau, he'll remember this one, because we were playing. And I think we were in Riverside. And I think it was the Riverside tournament, to be honest with you, at one juncture, probably midget major, like one of our last years, because Josh is a year younger than me. And I remember there was a scrum by the net, and I was playing pretty good. It was like the closest to a Gordie Howe hat trick I've ever got to. I think I had a goal and assist. And someone was going after Josh, and I thought, I'm going to be a big tough guy. And I grabbed the guy from behind. Now, in my defense, it wasn't the player that threw me down. It was a grown-ass linesman that basically put me in a chokehold and fired me onto the ice. And I think we both got 10s and we went to the room anyway. But what am I doing? I'm going to get my ass kicked, whether it's by a player or a linesman. I'm not going to fight. So I went in there to defend a teammate, quote unquote. What the hell am I going to do? And the referees were there already. So I put myself in a position to get my ass kicked for no reason. I mean, it was a scrum. Why am I doing that? It's stupid. That's what happened with Artemi Panarin. Now, like I said, 5K, you might as well not fine him, okay? If you're not going to suspend him, don't even fine him, okay? Just say, we looked at it, and really, I mean, the one thing that George Parros probably could do better is explain, okay, why? Why is he not getting suspended? Why is there only a fine? Explain it maybe like I just did. If that's his thought process, I'm not speaking for the guy, but that's what it sounds like to me, because he's been around the game. He's been a tough guy. You assume the risk. So this statement from the New York Rangers that I just read, I mean, I don't know who put that out, if it was the owner. I mean, I'd be embarrassed if I was a part of that organization. If you were a player that, obviously you don't want to see your star player get hurt. I assume there's a few guys on that team that kind of went, when Panarin went in, went, oh shit, with like, what are you doing? Get out of there, right? I don't think he should got suspended. If he was going to get suspended, 1 game. That's it. Honestly, I don't care that he's a repeat offender. I mean, yeah, he plays with an edge, that's for sure. But look me in the eye. You look me in the eye and tell me you wouldn't take Tom Wilson on your team. I would. Oh my God, I would love that, man. Like, open up some space here. Why do you think Ovechkin gets all the space? Backstrom, Oshie, you got these guys running around. They're going to pound your face in. And it was the same thing with old time with, Yzerman having Probert, Gretzky having McSorley. There was always a tough guy to police this stuff, because when this stuff happens and you don't have that guy, you're asking for the referees and the league to protect you. Why don't you protect yourself? Right. So that's why, and we're not going to get into the whole fighting thing. That's why fighting has a spot in the league, right? Because you want to do some justice, you go for it. And guess what happened the next night? We had a brouhaha like 2 seconds into the game, like just a line brawl, like 5 fights going on at once. Both teams put their tough guys out. Oh, all of a sudden the tough guys are in the lineup. And they beat the shit out of each other. And honestly, it was awesome. And Brendan Smith, Red Wings legend Brendan Smith, now he went after Tom Wilson, and I saw a tweet saying that he filled in Tom Wilson. Okay, Brendan Smith got ragdolled, okay? I respect him for going after him, because someone was going to. And if I'm on the Rangers, I'm like big ups to Brendan Smith, because it's just the act of I'm gonna go and I'm probably gonna get filled. But Brendan Smith's kind of a tougher guy too. Not Tom Wilson tough though. You can see that. So then, and it gets even crazier because after this, and I mean, this is, this statement is ridiculous, horrifying act of violence, and it's shocking, and it's dangerous and reckless and dereliction. I think that's aggressive. Honestly, I think that was a little much. And I think, and I don't know, but I think that's what happened is Jeff Gorton, the GM, and John Davidson, who I think was the president, both got canned because in my opinion, I think they distanced themselves from this statement and what the hell is this? Why I don't, like I said, I would be embarrassed if I was a part of their team and this statement was put out. And if they didn't have any say in that and it was just the owner firing this out, I know you're the owner, but oh my God, now you've got a shitstorm. You've just made this worse. So I think they got canned because of that. Now, the owner has actually said, well, it's because this rebuild isn't going quick enough. That's a load of bull crap because the rebuild's going fine, guys. You got Capo Caco, you got Alexis Lafreniere, you've got Artemi Panarin, Zibanejad, you got two young goalies in net. You're building a good core there. I like the way that the Rangers are going. They got lucky in the lottery a few times, which helps. But what do you mean it's not going quick enough? Like what do you want them to do? It takes time. This isn't football where you can flip it around pretty quick in a year or two. This is going to take time. And I bet you in a few years they will be pretty good and they'll be sniffing the playoffs and they'll be making some noise because their young guys are going to start maturing and hopefully, they figure it out. So I don't think that had anything to do with, we're not going quick enough in this rebuild. You can't really, if you force a GM, I think, into quickly doing a rebuild, they're going to do it wrong. You need to do it. And again, I'm a Wings fan. I'm going to keep going back to it. You give Steve Yzerman as much time as he needs because at one point, yeah, you're going to go, okay, we need to see some results. But with this league, prospects take time. Alexis Lafreniere had a decent season. He's a rookie. He's not Connor McDavid. He's not Sidney Crosby yet. Maybe he will be, but it's going to take him a second to become a dominant first line player. Same with Capo Caco. Same with, they got Adam Fox as a Norris Trophy finalist. I don't know what these guys really want. And I think that's what got them fired. It had nothing to do with their job performance. I think they distanced themselves from this ridiculous statement. So moving on to something kind of funnier. We talked a few episodes ago about how the NHL is going to be back on ESPN and how it's a good thing and viewership and TV ratings and blah, blah, blah. And another thing that I said is the NHL has a problem with marketing their players. And, that was just a subjective thing. I think it's something where I said some examples maybe, or I can say some now. If you say NFL and you talk to a random person that maybe has general knowledge of sports, let's just say someone that has watched sports, maybe not hardcore, and you go, who's the face of the NFL? A lot of people are probably going to say Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, right? Patrick Mahomes probably is the one, but everybody knows Tom Brady, right? They market the hell out of these guys, okay? They're on anytime they're showing a game. Well, Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball, they're doing highlights. That everybody knows these guys. Their best players are marketed very, very well in the NFL, and they do it extremely well. You go to basketball, right? Everybody knows LeBron James. Even people that don't know basketball will know LeBron James. They'll know Steph Curry, right? Those are the two biggest ones right now. And there's others, right? But they are marketed really, really well. And in the NBA, they've actually really embraced the whole superstar in the super teams, which I don't like it. But as a marketing standpoint, it's the best thing they could have done because you have talent and you want people to watch. If you market, let's say you can market a team, you can market a player or both, right? Like the marriage right now between LeBron James and the Lakers is perfect because the LA Lakers are one of the top teams, top franchises in the NBA, in NBA history almost. And LeBron James is the best of his era, maybe top 3. And I'm not a basketball guy. Top 3 ever? Can we say that? I don't know. He I'm not a basketball guy, but let's say that. He's very, very good. People know him. He's in Space Jam 2, which I'm not going to watch. And apparently, Michael Jordan's making a cameo. Spoiler alert. But I think we all saw that coming. And Pepe Le Pew's not going to be in it because he's a rapist. I mean, wow. I mean, Elmer Fudd was shooting Daffy Duck in the face and he gets to play in the game. I don't know. They probably got to fine them for it too and put out a statement. Back to the NHL with ESPN. They put out a graphic, okay? And just I don't know how you screwed up. I know how they screwed it up, but I'll pull it up and I'll describe it for people just listening. Let's hit this old share screen button here. And here it is. The National Hockey League and Turner Sports, NHL on ESPN, 3 Stanley Cup finals on TNT, the rights to every Winter Classic, live streaming on HBO Max. That's pretty cool. Honestly, TNT, ESPN, all this stuff, HBO Max, right on. Good for them. Good for the NHL. And then, I don't know, you look at this picture, and if you're not really a huge hockey fan, you'll go yeah, and big deal. They have I'm going to say Connor McDavid. They have Alex Ovechkin, captain of the Washington Capitals. And then they have the captain of the Edmonton Oilers, Andrew Ference. Andrew Ference is retired. Andrew Ference is not on the Edmonton Oilers. What they're looking for is Connor McDavid. I saw this and I went, of course they screwed this up. You probably had some intern, some conehead that they said, who should I put on this graphic? And then, the ESPN guy's like, I heard this Edmonton Oilers captain's pretty good. I should get him on there. And he's like, oh, okay. In Google's Oilers captain. If you actually Google Oilers captain, let's type it in. Edmonton Oilers captain. Images. Oh, there's a bunch right there, but look at the first one. That's the one that's on the freaking thing, is it not? Oh, wait, let's look. Let's look. It might be the same one. It's the same damn one. I didn't even notice that. Look at Andrew Ference. Boom. First one on Google. Same exact picture. That's incredible. I didn't think that was going to happen. Okay, I'm telling you right now, my theory is fact. I'm not even gonna fact check that. I just did. They typed in Edmonton Oilers captain and just used the first one. There's only 7,000 pictures of Connor McDavid next to him. Actually, sandwiched. I think Ference is in there again. But come on, guys. It's an easy Google. And then who cleared this? So do they not have a hockey department where, they can look at this stuff and go, okay, approved. Moving on. There wasn't one guy, one dummy like me or Brian to look at it and go, yeah, that's kind of funny. You put Andrew Ference on there. And they'd be like, what do you mean? And it's that guy's retired. Don't put it on. So NHL and ESPN.
They're off to a great start.
So we were talking about the Rangers. We're going to talk about an ex-coach of the Rangers. Okay, John Tortorella. And a lot of people have opinions about this dude. So he got fired by the Columbus Blue Jackets after 5 seasons, surprisingly. 6, actually. And I'm not sure what to think about it. No, I'm not. I am sure about it. He should have been canned. It was time. But I'm looking at his record. And he's obviously a successful coach. He won in 2003, 2004 with the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was a long time ago. Different game, different styles. That was a very good team in Tampa Bay. He was with the Rangers. He never made the playoffs. And then Columbus, he came in after one season with Vancouver, actually. Missed the playoffs in the first season. They went basically 500. Second season, lost in round one, 50 wins with Columbus. That's pretty good. Next year, lost in round one with 45 wins. The next year, they went on the round two, 47 wins in the regular season. And then the next year was the shortened one with COVID. So 70 games, 33 wins. They lost in the second round. And then this season, catastrophic. I mean, 56 games, went 18, 26, and 12. Missed the playoffs. And they're, I think, picking bottom five. So it was time to move on from John Tortorella, but it had nothing to do with the record. How do you take a team that was so clearly trending upward, out of playoffs, lost in round one, lost in round one, lost in round two, lost in round two, and then catastrophic? You traded Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was a third overall pick, to get Patrick Laine, who was the second overall pick, the same draft. And you ruined him. And now I'm not taking the blame away from Patrick Laine. But right when that trade was made, if we talked about it on this podcast, there's no way that I thought that was going to work. Patrick Laine in Columbus, are you serious? We did, because we talked about him going to New York, to the Islanders. And I said, that might work even less with a defensive system like Barry Trotz. John Tortorella, and I say this with the most respect, John Tortorella is like a peewee coach. And I'm going to explain what that means. John Tortorella, I think, has his ways. It's just what he's always done. And he hasn't changed it for nothing. So maybe things, pop up, new tactics, new systems, a different power play look. And the game does change. I mean, he can't coach the same way as 2004, 20 years later almost. So you have to change. And in that way, maybe he has. And one way that maybe he hasn't is individually coaching players to what type of player they are, what their role would be. And maybe the biggest thing is motivation and knowing how far to push a player. Because I think they didn't drive well, him and Patrick Laine, obviously. And another guy that started really well in the same trade was Jack Roslovic. He was scoring goals every night. And eventually he was a healthy scratch. So how do you explain that, where you take a guy that was doing pretty well and then you just shove him down the tubes? Something weird going on there. I don't know if he lost the room. I wasn't in there. I don't know. But it can happen, where you're part of a team and, it's just kind of the message kind of, it gets dry. It gets a little bit monotonous and the same. And, you need some fresh blood in there. And that's how I felt when Mike Babcock moved on from the Red Wings and they hired Jeff Blashill. It was time. It was just, you could hear, Zetterberg saying, it was just, the message in the room was just the same. And it was just stale. We needed a new voice. Happened with me playing soccer. And in soccer versus hockey, when you're playing, and especially like in Windsor here, and I'm sure just with regular travel sports, in hockey, and I think it's kind of the same right now, they only let you kind of stick around for 2 seasons as a coach. And in soccer, you can stay as long as you want. There's different rules in terms of where players can go as well, which is a big thing. In soccer, you can play for whatever team you want. You're not married to any, city or club. You can go and play wherever. My buddy Mediz, he played for freaking every team. I swear to God, every single year, different team, until he found us and then got his niche there. But in hockey, you were playing for your center. I mean, if you played in Windsor or Tecumseh or Belle River, that's where you were. And you couldn't leave unless you moved and your parents moved somewhere else. But you couldn't escape. So in soccer, if you didn't like a coach, you could just go play for another team. It wasn't a problem. So that's why it worked there. In hockey, the 2-season rule was so that there would be a new coach coming in, new opportunities. If something grew stale like this, you would get an opportunity. But it happened in soccer. We had a coach for a long time and we did really well with him. And then eventually it was just like, okay, that's enough. New guy. Didn't work out. I really didn't like the coach that we got to replace him. It honestly kind of killed the love of soccer for me, where I just didn't want to play it anymore. Just wasn't fun. because it wasn't what I remembered. And it was a totally different coaching style where it was more aggressive and negative. It was more negative reinforcement than positive. So some players, do well with that and some don't. Obviously, Patrick Laine doesn't do well with negative reinforcement. Like, I think it's, put him on the fourth line. He goes, what do you want me to do? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not in a situation where I can thrive here. That's what I mean when I say peewee coach. You can't coach every player to the same standard. You have to pick and choose, like, who are your skill guys? Who are your grinders? Who's going to be good in these situations? Who's not going to be good in these situations? Put them in a spot where they can succeed. And putting Patrick Laine on the fourth line for one game, maybe to send a message, that's fine. Go for it. That's happened to all of us. It's happened to me multiple times. And I think he just lost them right at the beginning. He lost Patrick Laine immediately. And he probably lost Jack Roslovic too. And he probably lost Pierre-Luc Dubois, and that's why he got traded. And he probably lost a few other guys in there. And, you won't find out about it. But that's why he's not there anymore. So that's why Torts got let go. Do I see him getting another job in the NHL? I see him getting a job in the NHL more than a lot of other coaches. I don't think he's someone that's going to change his ways, though. It was almost like the same thing we were talking about with Babcock. That's who he is, and he'll be effective with some teams. And it's almost like he has a certain 5-6 year window, right? Where he's going to go hard at these guys, and then that's it. Like, he's used it all up, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So, because if I look at Tampa, he was there for 7 years. He won a championship right in the middle. New York, he was there for 5 years. Vancouver 1, and then Columbus 6. So for the 3 teams he was there for a huge chunk, yeah, he was there for 5 or 6 years, and that was it. Moving on, something a little more lighthearted here, to do with my Wings. 2 fun stats. The Red Wings leading scorer this year had 0 goals on a goaltender. And I'm speaking about Filip Hronek, who is a defenseman who, in my opinion, didn't have a good season, had 2 goals and however many assists. I think he had like 28 points. He had both of his goals on an empty net. And if they track this, I would love to know. I think he leads the NHL in active players in average distance of empty net goals. Every empty netter this guy scores is from behind his own net. And it's always in the air and hits like right where the camera is. That's like the one thing I think the guy practices. Because one thing he doesn't is how to walk the blue line. Because that guy like leaves an inch and he pulls it out offside all the time. It just drives me nuts. So the other one is a little bit more mind-blowing. And you can look this up. It is actually a stat, and maybe I can look it up here too. In the last 2 seasons, the top 4, and it might be 3, and I'll say it first, and then we'll look it up. In the top 3 or 4 in even strength goals in the last 2 NHL seasons there's 3 really obvious ones. It's Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin. Arguably the top 3 goal scorers in the league right now. Number 4 was shocking to me. It's Jacob Vrana, who the Red Wings traded for. And I actually was like, wow, that's very impressive. Now, he played for the Capitals, right, with Ovechkin, but like it means he's getting a bulk of his goals in even strength. So I actually really liked that stat because it I don't know, it just made me feel good about Jacob Vrana. So if we type in like we'll put last 2 NHL seasons even strength. If I can type even strength goals. See if we can find this out. No, not in one season. Here it is. No, that's all time actually. It might put active players. Let's see. I think it says all time. It says regular season. That is all time. That is interesting. So I'm not even saying the past 2 seasons. I think technically in the past 2 seasons with these guys, obviously they're all in the same. So So yeah, even strength goals over 60. So that's pretty good. Brandon's third. So that's pretty impressive to get a guy like that just for like Anthony Mantha. And you got 2 picks, 2 first rounders, and a couple of seconds or whatever the trade was. Or no, it was a first and a second. Sorry. But yeah, interesting. I was like, that's kind of interesting to look at that. And I didn't expect it. I was just shocked. Now, moving on to what I think was a big thing for a lot of people is Jack Eichel. And if you saw, we're going to go down and kind of break down the Sabres a little bit here, which is something that, like I said, me and Brian like to do that. So I'm going to try and attempt it myself, and I will try and do him proud. Jack Eichel had some comments about possibly wanting out of Buffalo. And I'll try and see, I'll pull some up here. So they said there's a disconnect. Now, Jack Eichel hurt his neck during the season. And what basically happened is he's upset with how they handled it. They didn't want him to get the surgery. Which why wouldn't you invest in your star player? I don't understand that. So he said, I've been a bit upset about the way things have been handled since I've been hurt. There's been a bit of disconnect between myself and the organization. The most important thing is to get healthy and be ready to play hockey next year, wherever that might be. So that is kind of interesting. He's saying he's got to take care of himself. Like, there's been some tough conversations, but I've got to do what's best for me. I'm only going to play hockey for so long. He's right. Hopefully I have many more good years in this amazing game, but I've got to take care of myself. He said for now, obviously he's here. We kind of said that maybe he's gone, in the offseason. That was what our trade deadline, when we were guessing, I thought he was gone. And again, I think if you guys check out that pod, we went through it in one place that I mentioned maybe him going Calgary. There are some odds on where they think he's going to end up. The aforementioned Rangers would be one. The Kings are one, and it's just betting odds. Columbus, Detroit, a lot of the teams that are kind of more at the bottom, which I'm like, what are you going to give up for him, right? And that's the biggest thing is what are you going to give up for Jack Eichel? What is he worth? And would he even be any better off in any of these other situations, knowing that a lot of those teams that I just said are in like full rebuilds? So we can break down let's break down the Rangers right now. Sabres. The Sabres. Now, they're obviously out of the playoffs. Let's look at their lines first. Now, this is going to be a little bit ugly. So, Anders Bjork, they got him in the Taylor Hall trade. Again, I think they got fleeced in that deal. So, Anders Bjork, Sam Reinhart, who also there's some rumors that he might be, out of here. And Victor Olofsson, who's just a power play specialist. Rasmus Appland, never heard of him. Casey Middlestad, he was picked right before Michael Rasmussen. He's been up and down. Tage Thompson, I'm pretty sure he came from the Blues. And then you got Jeff Skinner with Dylan Cousins, who, was pretty decent. Arttu Ruotsalainen, I think he's like Ristolainen, like a knockoff version, no name. Then you got Brett Murray, Riley, 2 goals, Shan from the Red Wings there, and then Drake Caggiula. That's some ugly lines. I mean, that's an AHL lineup right there. And then on defense, Rasmus Dahlin, who first overall pick, ain't playing like it. Henry Jokiharju, Matthias Samuelsson, Rasmus Ristolainen, Jacob Bryson, and Colin Miller. And then in net, they have, let's see who they rock in here. Where are they? Oh, yeah, they tanked, and they brought up Michael Hauser and Stefanos Lekas. Never heard of these guys. Now, the guys they have out, Gergensons, Jake McCabe, obviously Eichel, Kyle Okposo, who's still in the league somehow. Linus Ullmark was their goalie this year. Luukkonen is also a goalie. Tokarski also a goalie. Cody Eakin. A lot of injuries, but nothing, honestly, you put them in there, they're still not a good team. So the cap situation, and this is what you want to look at, they're going to have some problems here because now they have a ton of picks. They only have 1 first rounder, should have 2 because of Taylor Hall, but they botched it. They have a second rounder from Boston and their own. They don't have their third round, but they have Florida and Montreal's. And then they have a 4th, a 5th, 2 6th, and a 7th. So, decent amount, nothing crazy. Looking at this cap. I haven't looked at this yet. Like I said, that's kind of our thing, is we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants and figure this out. Right away, right at the top, Jeff Skinner, no movement clause, 29 years old, making $9 million for the next God knows how many, because the chart doesn't go that far. It says 26, 27, $9 million a year. Horrible contract. Absolutely horrendous. Worst one I've seen so far since we've been doing this. I don't know what you do with this guy. He's 11% of your salary cap. I really don't know how you move on from that. Another bad contract. Kyle Okposo, $6 million for the next 3 years. So obviously 2 more after this one. Then he's unrestricted. 33 years old. I mean, you have to field the team. I don't think you have to buy out anybody here. I think you just keep him. Sam Reinhart, again, he's RFA. So you can, keep him sticking around. He's still going to make $5 million, probably more. I'm not sure if he has RFA, like arbitration rights. I assume he does because he's 25. And he definitely has the amount of games. So, arbitration, I mean, it would be probably good for Sam Reinhart because he'd get only a 1-year deal, and then that might bring him to UFA. I'm not really 100% sure on those rules. Olofsson at $3 million is not bad. Eakin 2.2 for the next few years. That's okay. Same with Bjork. I think he's 24. He's underrated, I think. And Tage Thompson, another young guy. So we're getting into the young guys. Dylan Cousins, entry-level deal. Middlestat, Asplund, they're going to get re-signed as well. And then you got like Tobias Reeder, Kajula, Riley Shan. Those guys are all basically AHLers, right? Now, obviously, on the injured reserve, you got Jack Eichel, $10 million for the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more years. He's worth it. I mean, on a team that they would actually build around, because they're not building around him right now. And then Jake McCabe, 2.8 for Jake McCabe isn't bad as a defenseman. And looking at their actual D, that was just their injured reserve, but their actual defenseman. So Ristolainen, 5.4 mil. He's got 1 more year coming up. That's fine, but he hasn't really turned into what they thought he was going to be, shown flashes. Colin Miller, 3.8, again, another year. Their defensemen, they're not in a position where they're screwed there. They got Rasmus Dahlin and Yoki Haru, Bryson, and then I don't really know if this Bryson guy's any good. But those 2 guys, Yoki Haru and Dahlin, they're both restricted. So, and I don't think they're going to get that much. They got a bridge deal, 2-3 years, maybe make like a couple mil. It's not going to be anything crazy. Maybe Dahlin will try to say, I'm a first overall pick, but it's like, stats show otherwise. In net, you got both your goalies are up next year, Hutton and Ullmark. Luukkonen's your guy of the future. He's 22, so like hopefully he turns into something. But I just look at this and it's just cringy. Like dead cap, yeah, you got Taylor Hall and Stauffer retained. No one really cares about that. Cody Hodgson's still on the buyout history. It's not a lot of money there either. But like non-roster, like just kind of looking through here. Jack Quinn was a first round pick. So maybe you hit on him. I don't know. I remember that pick at the time. I was like, really? He went kind of high. I don't really know a lot of these other guys, and that's kind of not too great because I usually know a handful of them. I don't know any of these guys other than Jack Quinn. So that can't be that great. No, I mean, prospect-wise, let's put prospect Buffalo Sabres, and we'll see who they got, because they're probably going to say Dylan Cousins. Here we go. Top prospects for the Sabres. Yeah, it's a lot of the guys that are already there. Like I said, Cousins, there he is number 1. Luukkonen, like I said, Jack Quinn. We just said Matthias Samuelsson, and Bryson. Yeah, so again, they're already there. They don't really have anyone else coming. So they're in a pickle here. And I do feel a little bit bad for Jack Eichel. I mean, when you're picked first overall and you're the captain, you're getting built around, and they're not building around you. I mean, yeah, okay, great. We picked Rasmus Dahlin. How's that helping him? He doesn't have anybody to play with. I mean, who? Jeff Skinner? I mean, the guy's been terrible, and he's got a horrible contract that you can't move. He has control of where he goes. If he wants to stay in Buffalo the whole time, he can. I mean, you're locked in with him, and you can't buy that out. You're gonna be paying that for the next probably 10 years, maybe 11 or 12, because it doubles in term. So I understand Eichel saying, get me the hell out of here, but it's just a matter of where. And I mean, again, I don't really see a crazy fit because now with Calgary bottoming out as much as they did, I don't think that's something that they do. But again, it's a shuffle of the deck. If there was that Gaudreau trade that I said with Ristolainen and Eichel and whatever it was, might make sense. But like a team like that, I love, like the Wings. Like they need a number one center, but what do you give up? What is he going for? Do you have to give up your pick this year at 6? Probably not doing that. Maybe I would. I mean, it depends who's there. I mean, if you make a trade draft day, I don't think that'll happen. I mean, Yzerman is pretty bold, so he could. But it's going to take a first-round pick, probably a couple of them. It'll probably take your top prospect or two, another roster player. You're looking at, you're going to get gouged. But if there's something that we do know is that the Sabres don't know how to leverage their offers because they would have got more for Taylor Hall if they knew what they were doing. Second round pick. I mean, they did it wrong. They didn't set their price high enough so that they would get what they needed. And then they just panicked and they took a deal the night before the deadline. Like, why aren't you making these guys sweat? Because you're the one that sets the price. But they really didn't. They set a price where it was too low. And a lot of teams are like, what are you doing? And guys went for a little bit more than that anyway. So I don't have any confidence in the Buffalo Sabres to get this right. And I feel bad for like Buffalo fans. I don't know any of them. But when they were good, I mean, that place was bumping, man. Like, I think it would be kind of cool to go up there. I mean, Buffalo's like a, 4-hour drive from here. That'd be fun to go to a game, like if they were good, and it was bumping. I don't think they don't have a really clear way forward here. That's something where, your star player is looking out and he wants to get out of here. Holy shit. I mean, if he does, you better get a haul. You better get something that is going to turn this around in the next few years. You need something for him. And that's what I would set my price at. Roster player, like a playing roster player, your 2 top prospects, a couple first round picks. And you have to go from there. And honestly, if it doesn't happen this year, you have to keep trying and keep trying to get that right deal. Because like I said before, it just takes one other person to trade with that's willing to be a little bit crazy. You don't need all other 30, now 31 GMs to say yes to the proposal. You just need one. Right, Hursty? So, and the last thing I want to talk about, well, actually 2 things, but first one, I just saw this the other day. And, with Hockey Night in Canada being on Sportsnet now, a lot of things have changed over the years, and they've retained some of their talent, we'll say, and they found some guys. Now, one guy that I love, Kevin Bieksa, is on there because he's just a guy. Like, he played in the show. He knows what he's talking about, and he's entertaining. And honestly, he throws some chirps out there. You can tell he's very comfortable doing this job. He's not like Patrick Sharp, like just sitting there like, I thought that they played well this period. Back to you, Keith Jones, who also I don't want to freaking NBC. I can't wait till they're gone. But then you got, Kelly Rudy's been there for a long time. He's been with CBC. He's been with Hockey Night in Canada. For people that don't know who Kelly Rudy is, he was a goalie for the LA Kings back in the day, and he had his little bandana and his ponytail, and he had the weird looking mask. And he wasn't that good, but he said like the stupidest thing ever. Now, I'm just going to say this. This ain't my job. So this is all just opinion. I'm a massage therapist. So now something that is my expertise, let's just listen to what he says. And actually, you know what I'm going to do too? Just to give you a little bit of backstory. Vitek Vanacek, the goalie for the Washington Capitals, the playoffs started yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago, depending on when this comes out. He got injured, making a save, kind of went into the splits, but I mean, he didn't even make the save. He got scored on, but I think he pulled his groin or tweaked his knee or something like that. And he had to get replaced by Craig Anderson, and the Capitals ended up losing, or no, they didn't lose. Washington win? I don't even remember. Whatever. I thought they were playing the Islanders. I'm all scatterbrained. But Vanecek gets hurt. After the game, Ron McLean asks Kelly Hrudey about it, and I'm just going to play his response. It's about a minute long, so let's just listen to what he says, and I'll react to it after.
Carousel situation, but Kelly, you first on what happened in the net for the Caps. Oh boy, where do you start and where do I want to go? I guess there's a part of me that I suppose I'm supposed to feel sorry for Vanecek, his first ever NHL playoff start. But he gives up, first of all, it's a bad goal. He just wasn't ready. You can tell immediately that something was wrong. But I'm sorry, if you're an NHL goaltender, you should not be pulling or straining a muscle. That's one of your...
I'm going to just pause it right there. Just so you guys know, that's the stupidest comment I've ever heard. Continuing.
Jobs to make sure that you're stretched out, and whether that means you stretch 8 to 10 times during the course of a day before the game
also doesn't matter that much. Continuing
to make sure this doesn't happen. I mean, that's, you've got to be a better pro than that.
Offensive.
And then it's unfair to the organization. It's unfair to Craig Anderson.
Craig Anderson's job is quite literally the backup goalie and to be ready for if something like this happens, Kelly.
Anderson in a week is going to be 40 years old.
Then retire if you're 40. You think he wanted to play. He's in the NHL. That's his job.
And I just think that when you're in that position, you've got to do all you can to make sure that you're stretched out. Now,
he probably did.
If you have a different structural injury, like you hurt your knee or your shoulder or your wrist, I'm all good with that.
Same damn thing.
And then I do feel empathy or sympathy for you, but not a pulled muscle.
Okay, so Kelly Hrudey just basically proved to me that he's a moron, because just because you're a goalie doesn't mean if you stretch out 8 to 12 times, you might be doing yourself a little more like a disservice to that. I mean, yeah, you got to get warmed up, you got to get loose, you can work on your flexibility, but that's over time. That save, and we didn't see it or attempt at a save. He went into full splits very quickly. That is an extreme, hey, my muscle is this long, and now it's this long. He pulled the shit out of his groin, okay? There's nothing you can do to stop that, because how many times are you going to go into that actual position and pull a muscle? Kelly Hrudey thinks that pulling a muscle is different than tweaking your knee. It's a weird position to be in as a goalie anyway. So it's almost like, okay, Kelly, you've never pulled a muscle in your life. If he did, he thought that was his fault, that he didn't warm up enough. So first of all, like I was saying, to blame Vanecek for not preparing properly, how do you even know that? You don't. He probably did the same thing he's been doing the whole season. And just, it was a freak thing. And it just, so I don't know if there was anything there where, like, does Kelly Hrudey just hate Vitek Vanecek? I mean, it sounded like it, because that was super unfair. So, and then to call him a bad pro is also like, dude, offside. Like, you're insinuating that he's not getting prepared properly because he got injured. Okay. So if you get shot in the leg, you should continue to play. I mean, do you think Vitek Vanecek wanted to get hurt? That was his intention? I'm going to screw over Craig Anderson and make him come in cold as a 40-year-old. And that whole thing about him talking about it's unfair to Craig Anderson, he's 40 years old. What are you talking about? I mean, if it's unfair, then why is he in the league? Why do we have backup goalies? Injuries happen, okay? And for him to say that, I think, and it's maybe to just trigger idiots like me or to get clicks, get articles, it might be the smartest thing he's done, because now people are talking about him. And I mean, bad press is good press, or what is it? Any press is good press. But that just made no sense to me. It was almost like a forced thing where he's like, I'm going to make something of this that isn't there. I just feel like I saw like Cassie Campbell and Ron McLean just like backing out of frame. And what I really would have liked to hear is BX's rebuttal to that, because he might have just said the same thing I did. The video doesn't keep going. Because I'd have been like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Kelly. Like, give your head a shake. Last thing I want to talk about, obviously it's the playoffs, and I mean, everybody's doing their predictions, right? Everybody's looking at it and going, I'm going to pick this team. This is what the bracket. I personally hate the bracket. I don't like that it's like a preset path. I really, really loved the old way of 1 to 8. and the reseed after every round because it made more sense. Because if you're the number one seed, it means a lot more. You're always going to play the lowest seed in your conference, at least. Now, looking at this, there are some crazy things that could happen. Like, you could technically see a Toronto-Boston final. Like, that'd be hilarious to see Boston come from behind again and beat the Maple Leafs again. But just looking at some of the matchups, I did kind of want to be like, let's see what's happening. Now, there are some that, seem obvious. And there's always ones that seem obvious. And let me tell you, when the Vegas Golden Knights came into this league, nobody, myself included, any expert is not an expert. They don't know shit. It's like stockbrokers. They don't know if the stocks are going to go up, down, or in a fucking circle. They don't know. You're going to make an educated guess, and you're just going to go with it. So, like, I can guess at what's going to happen, but you can base it on statistic. You can base it on gut or feel. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. But when I see these experts picking just the same team, all of them, I naturally want to pick the opposite because, like, what do you guys know that nobody else does? Like, what's the reasoning there? Any one of these teams can beat each other. That's why they're there. They're good teams. They're in the playoffs, right? Obviously, the number one seed is the favorite, or the number two seed playing 3. Let's go through them, honestly. Toronto, Montreal. I'm telling you right now, I'm picking Montreal in 7. I honestly think that Carey Price is going to steal you at least 2 of these games. And now, Montreal has to figure this shit out because Cole Caulfield should be in this lineup. He's got 4 goals in 10 games. And if he's a healthy scratch in game 1, I don't know why. Because scoring goals in the playoffs versus the regular season, there's no difference. You're playing hockey, okay? If he went from NCAA right to AHL and then right to the NHL, and he's doing the same thing every single time, put him in your lineup, put him on the top 2 lines, put him on the power play. Until he does something that you don't like, he's proved that he should be there. I look at the Leafs, and I know a bunch of my Leafs buddies are just going to be like, oh, you're just doing it because I would love to see the Leafs win a Stanley Cup so that a lot of Leafs fans could just shut the hell up forever. Like, they'd have their moment and, like, let's move on. But also because it is cool to win. And, like, I guess I'm 30 and I'm showing my age here, but, like, it's been a second and it's pretty cool to see your team win. So, like, I would pull for you. Toronto, Montreal, 2 of my 3 least favorite teams. So if the stadium blew up, it wouldn't make me sad. But I think Montreal has a real shot at taking out the Leafs. I really do. Toronto is very deep. I'll give them that. They have a lot of the veterans now that they didn't have before. They've got the grit. They've got the goal scoring. The key, and again, it's just the goaltending. But not for the reason that a lot of people think. Ooh, Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell's been playing really, really well. What he reminds me of is like Chris Osgood with the Wings. He just has to be good enough. He doesn't have to be spectacular, just be solid. And it always comes down to goaltending in the playoffs. Okay? And if I'm looking at this series as if it's goalie versus goalie, it's Carey Price versus Jack Campbell. And maybe Freddie Anderson, who hasn't played in the NHL for a while because he's hurt. I'll take Carey Price every time. And I don't think it really matters who's on the other side because a goalie like that, he can win you a series. Look at the Knights going to the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago or whenever that was. Marc-Andre Fleury brought them there. Like, he literally put them on his back, and they played well. I'm not going to say they didn't, but he was a huge part of it. Edmonton, Winnipeg, another one where, honestly, I think the Jets take this one. And if you look at goaltending again, it's Connor Hellebuyck versus like Mike Smith. I'm taking Hellebuyck every time. And the only argument for the Oilers, in my opinion, is that they have McDavid and Draisaitl. That's the only argument that you can say for the Edmonton Oilers. And Connor McDavid had a fantastic season. And he had like Gretzky-like numbers. But let's put this in perspective a little bit, okay? Not to like shit all over the kid, because he's incredible. Like, everybody played the same teams this year, right? Where a really good player like him is going to figure a lot of things out. And he's going to torch these Canadian teams every time he plays them now because he's playing them all the time. So he's going to know the goalies. He's going to know the defensemen. He's going to know tendencies. He's a smart guy. So for him to throw up all these points, it doesn't surprise me because he's picking on the same teams every single time. You're only seeing, certain looks. So, but I look at Winnipeg as a team that could surprise a little bit. I don't think Edmonton's deep enough. I don't believe in them at all. I think they had a good regular season. But so technically in the North, I'm picking both. I'm picking Montreal and Winnipeg to move on. Would it surprise me if the Leafs and Oilers moved on? No, absolutely not. Nothing would surprise me in any of these series, honestly. But I'm going to pick the Habs. I'm going to pick the Jets. If we look at the Central, Carolina taking on Nashville, really bizarre looking series there because I'm so used to like the East and the West. I'm used to that where like Carolina and Nashville wouldn't be in the same division, so like why would they be in the playoffs? But Carolina, Nashville. So like looking at this one, in boiling down the goaltending too, there's kind of question marks on both sides because you got Pecorino and UC Saros, who's going. Carolina, Peter Mrazek, James Reimer. It should be Mrazek, right? And Carolina they're on the upswing. They're a pretty good team. They got some young guys like Svechnikov who they're carrying the team and doing really well. Their defense I like, with Slavin and Dougie Hamilton. Nashville, they squeaked into the playoffs there. Honestly, I don't think they were going to make it. I thought Dallas would catch them, but they didn't. Obviously having like Roman Josi, Forsberg down the middle, they have a good team as well. That's a series that I see going 7. In this one, I'm probably going to pick the Hurricanes. I like their energy. I like how they play. I think Nashville is an interesting spot where they've been hanging around for a while, and this might be kind of the last kick at the can where you might have to think of moving things around a little bit. Florida and Tampa Bay, first time in history that these teams have both played each other in the playoffs as 2 Florida-based teams. And I think it's going to be an entertaining series. I mean, if there's any of these that I would watch, it would probably be that one, just because both styles of play, they're fast, they score a lot, they got a lot of talent. The goaltending matchup there, I mean, definitely Tampa's got the edge with Vasilevsky over Bobrovsky, I think for sure. Bobrovsky might steal him a game, but he's also prone to like, hey, I let in 5. You're going to have to win 6-5 against Tampa Bay. That's not going to help you. But Tampa Bay just got back Stamkos and Kucherov. He's been out for the whole year. They're probably going to have to revisit the long-term injured reserve rule. It really isn't fair that you can get a guy like Kucherov, who's a top 10 player in the league, back for the playoffs, because Tampa Bay obviously had a decent regular season. But I mean, would they be better with Kucherov? 100%. I mean, he changes everything and changes matchups against teams. And that's what Florida will probably struggle with, is to keep up with Tampa Bay's depth. I don't think they're going to struggle keeping up with their speed, but it'll just be the matchups that they're going to have to really look at and go like, okay, how are we going to contain, Kucherov, Stamkos, Palat, Johnson, Killorn, like they've got a lot of depth in there. And like, it's one of those things where like, you're just going to have to bring the offense. And that's why I think that is going to be a really cool series. Ekblad being out for Florida hurts them big time. And I think that's why I give the edge to Tampa. I didn't really pick games like in, how many games I think it's going to, because I think that's kind of stupid. Like I picked the winner. All these usually go 6 or 7 anyway. I mean, Tampa, Florida, like just for fun, I'll say 6, but I think Tampa's going to come out of that. So it'll be a Tampa and Carolina going through there. Looking at what would that be? The East? Yeah. Pittsburgh and the Islanders. This is an interesting one because I look at both these teams differently. I look at the Islanders as like a defensive team that has talent up front, like Barzal. And I think with a coach like Barry Trotz, that the Islanders could just stymie the Penguins offense big time, especially with the way, I don't know, Pittsburgh number 1 seed. It's weird because they're there again. And I'm expecting them to fall off just because looking at, and that's a team we might look at their cap eventually too, but they, Crosby, Malkin didn't really have a good year. Crosby's Crosby. I'll give him that, but he's getting older too. This is one where I definitely see the Islanders putting up a fight and taking the Penguins out. Is that what I want to happen? You bet. Because remember when I said Toronto, Montreal, and there was another team that I hate? It's the Penguins. But I think the Islanders can get that one done if they play defensive. Now, defense doesn't win series. You got to score some goals, but I could see that going like a 7-game series. But I think the Islanders will get that one done. Moving on for the Capitals and the Bruins. This is going to be another series that's going to be fast. It's going to be fun to watch. Another team, Boston, in my opinion, is in almost the same boat as Pittsburgh, where they're still buying and they're trying to keep it going. Like, they still have their same core. They got Marchand, Bergeron, Krejci, Raskin net, and they're adding guys like Taylor Hall. And Pittsburgh added like Jeff Carter, right? I think Pittsburgh might fall off before Boston. I was expecting Boston to kind of fizzle out with some of the guys that they lost and who they still have on D, and like not having Chara. That's an interesting thing, is Big Z like playing his old team. That's kind of cool. I'm picking the Capitals in this one. I think it's going to be a really close series too. Again, I would say 7 games. I don't see a ton of sweeps, but you never do. I mean, it would be pretty bold to be like, this team's going to get swept. So I'll pick the Capitals in that one. Moving on to the West, Colorado, who won the President's Trophy, playing St. Louis. Everybody has picked Colorado to just like basically crush the Blues. I like how the Avalanche are built, and we went through that with Zinger an episode or 2 ago. And they're going to be good for a while. They're going to be good for the next 5-6 years easily. Is this the beginning of their window? Yeah, I think it is. And I think in last year, I think they got taken out by the Stars and Dallas went to the Stanley Cup. But it's interesting because the Blues are only a few seasons, removed from winning a Stanley Cup. I mean, they lost Pietrangelo, their captain, and like they're definitely a different team. I could see the Blues beating the Avalanche. I really could. I don't have the stones to tell you that they're going to, though. I don't believe in Jordan Binnington. I think he had a great run when they won the Cup. I don't think he's been the same since. With Colorado, just with McKinnon and Rantanen and like just some of the depth that they have on that team and some of the young guys and their defensemen. I mean, Cale Makar, like Ryan Graves, Samuel Girard. They've got some nice young talent back there that are already like budding stars, where they're already playing at that star level. And I mean, so I'm going to pick the Avalanche, although I could see St. Louis doing it. If there was like a huge upset, I could see the Blues taking those guys out. And the last series would be Vegas taking on Minnesota. This one seems like a slam dunk for Vegas. Looking just at the matchup, it would tell you the opposite, though, because I'm picking Minnesota. The Wild were 5-1-2 against the Knights this year. So they played them tough. They beat them a bunch. And does that translate to the playoffs? Not every time, but it shows you that they know how to play them. And I think Minnesota is one of those teams where you don't really think that much about them. Vegas, it's almost like they haven't really hit like any type of adversity. Like they just kind of flown through their first year and they weren't supposed to do anything. And they made the finals. And then it was kind of like they did well the next season too, right? And they made, I think they made the second round. I think that was when San Jose took them out? I think it was the March's 5-minute major penalty, and they scored like 3 or 4 power play goals or something like that. And San Jose, I think, took them out in Game 7. I'm trying to think who won it in OT, because I remember Vegas tied it late. It was like a 6-5 OT win. It was a random guy on the Sharks. I forget who scored in overtime. But yeah, I could see Minnesota. I'm picking Minnesota to beat Vegas, and I think this is the first time where you're going to see Vegas look like a team that can get beat by someone that they probably shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe I'll just go through them all. Let's get crazy. I didn't even plan on doing this, so we're just going to do it kind of as we're going here. So who do I pick? Montreal versus Winnipeg. Sorry, Lou, but I'm thinking this is where the magic run ends here. I think they're going to run out of gas after taking out Toronto. I think Winnipeg, again, getting Dubois for Laine was a good deal. I think Hellebuck is going to be their X factor there. So I'll take the Jets. And then I had the Hurricanes and the Lightning. I honestly think Tampa Bay still got it. I think they still have that depth. They still have that drive. I think they still remember losing to Columbus and getting swept and then coming back the next year winning the cup. They're the defending champs. Everybody's going to give you their best. Carolina might be their toughest test going through to the final. So I'm going to pick Tampa Bay. And on the other side, I had the Islanders playing the Capitals. Boy, that's a tough one too. That one, yeah, that's an interesting matchup as well because you're also going kind of firepower versus defense. I still think Washington will be a little bit too much for them. I don't think Pittsburgh's the offensive team that if you give me Washington versus Pittsburgh for who's more offensive and who's going to score more, it's going to be Washington. So I think that'll be something where the Caps will probably take out the Islanders. And then we're looking at Colorado versus Minnesota. This is probably where the Wild can't go any further. I think they run into a brick wall with Colorado. I think that's an easier matchup, honestly, for the Avalanche than the Blues. So I'll go with Colorado. So in the conference final, I have Winnipeg taking on Tampa Bay, and this might be where you see a sweep. I think Tampa Bay is just they're going to walk over any of these teams, honestly. I think anyone in that Canadian division is going to get crushed by Tampa Bay. So I'd say Tampa Bay going to the final. And then on the other side, we got Washington versus Colorado. That is going to be a dynamite series. Like I could see that just being like just a bloodbath and just like pure entertainment. I would love to see that. I'm going to pull for that. You know what? Going through this bracket, I didn't think I was going to do this, but like Washington, Colorado, that would be a lot of fun to watch. And you know what? It's not Colorado's year. Everybody's thinking it's Colorado's year. I could see them winning it, but I think it's going to take them another season. I think to really get that, like, you have to have that adversity, I think, to just not fly right to the final and win it because you have the best team and the best regular season. Maybe that's something that they need, So even them losing this year, if they get a few rounds in, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for them. I think they can regroup and just be like that hungry team where they're like, okay, we got to get this done. So I'll take Washington. So we got a Washington Tampa Bay final. That'll be interesting. Lou's going to say this is Homer. I don't follow the Tampa Bay Lightning anymore. Stevie's home, buddy. Okay, so you can keep that joke going as much as you want, but I'm not a Tampa Bay guy. But I think we're going to see a repeat champion this year again. Pittsburgh did it a few years ago. I think Tampa Bay is going to get it done. I think they have all the tools that they need. I think Kucherov coming in rested. Is it bullshit? It is. Yeah. But it's within the rules. So, until they change the rule, do you think they wanted this guy for the whole season? Are you kidding me? You want your best player to be sitting out all year and you still make the playoffs? Like, that's insane. That shows what a good team you are. So adding that in, it's almost not fair. It is not fair. But I think that's actually going to help them, and they'll get to the final again, and I think they'll win whoever they play. So there you go. Bushy's playoff predictions. Let's see how wrong I am, because probably a lot of these will be. But just know that probably half of these top seeds won't win. And it's just trying to figure out which ones are they. Maybe not half. I'd say there's going to be a few. If there was no upsets, what's the point of playing these games? We'll just put all the number ones all the way through, right? So yeah, so that was a lot of stuff that I kind of wanted to cover there. Like I said, there's a lot of other things that are going to happen in the next week or two that when we get Bobo back, we can go through with him. But until next time, episode 9 of the Buschy and Bobo show on healthyscratch.ca. Visit us there. Haven't done a ton of articles lately, but it's only when we want to. We're loving the podcast, though. We're also on Facebook, Healthy Scratch. We're on Twitter. Haven't really done a lot of TikTok, the Instagram stuff, but check us out there if you like. And let's see how these playoffs go, man. I'm looking forward to the draft as a Wings fan. That's kind of my thing to look forward to. I'll definitely be paying attention to the playoffs, watching some games here and there. If there was one, I think I'm going to be losing moral support as the Montreal plays Toronto, but maybe look for that on our Twitter page. We might be live tweeting his reactions, good and bad, rational and irrational, for the Habs there. So look forward to that. Next time that you hear from us, it's going to be double digits. I didn't think we'd be doing it this long, but hey, keep it going. Healthy Scratch Podcast. Talk to you guys later. Peace out.